You're listening to the Legion of Reason.
Someone show me how to show up as Bernie. I could be Bernie today.
That's pretty
and I
good.
could fight with Hillary and with Trump.
Yes.
By the way, we're on the air, and there's a great invitation there, Aaron. So welcome to our super fantastic, extra special election coverage of the upcoming, American election and the subsequent apocalypse. We've also got a couple other stories, but joining myself, or joining you. No, if my wife hears me say myself like that, she'll kill me. Joining me, the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson and Christine and Twyla. We have Faisal Al Mutar, who is the founder of the Global Secular Humanist Movement. We have Aron Ra, who is president of Atheist Alliance of America. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, it is correct. I was good. There's becoming so many of them, which is a wonderful problem.
All right, hold on.
But
I like that problem.
And Lilandra Ra. And we're going to talk first, I think, about the Southern Poverty Law Center thing that's happened, though, before we get into the election. As everybody knows by now, two people that we consider non-extremists have been labeled by the Southern Poverty Law Center as being anti-Muslim extremists, one being Maajid Nawaz, the other Aayan Hirsi Ali. And, what does everybody have to say about this? Go ahead, Faisal.
Oh, well, I have some echo, so I'm going to try to talk as there's nobody talking to me. So if there is anybody who wants to talk, just let me know so I can not interrupt.
Okay.
I'm extremely disappointed to say the least that two of my friends are being compared to, literally extremists or white supremacists or people holding views that many of us would think are deplorable, and that is not that. Unfortunately, there is trend with that. It's not only like people like Maajid or Aayan getting this for kind of some time. She's labeled as an extremist and Islamophobe, all types of hater and sort of mass murderer. The moment she opened her mouth to talk about Islam, regardless of the views that she holds, as long as some people like this are being positive about Israel, facing the prime minister of Israel, and so on. But it's really much bigger than that. It's an organized movement to try to silence every criticism of Islam. I don't know if you're hearing. Hello?
We're here. We're just working a bit of a sound issue because you're coming in kind of choppy, at least to me.
Continue on anyway.
So this has been going on for quite a while, and despite of the fact that how much people like Maajid, who is himself identifies with the Muslim religion, and I would consider him to be proud of his Muslim heritage, try to be extremely careful about how to stop generalizing on Muslim people or even Islam, and he tried to differentiate between Islamism, which is the use of using Islam as a force of theocracy, versus Islam as a religion or a set of ideas. Even with that, in my opinion, very careful and nuanced view, it seems like it doesn't seem to have worked with them. So if you look at the list, it's published more like a PDF version, which is meant to be for journalists who want to know who's talking about Islam and which people to avoid and so on. And so he's being put with people like Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer and Daniel Pipes and so on, who, if you look at it, they are much different than Maajid Nawaz. With people like Pamela Geller, they're more on the far right people who probably think that Obama is a Muslim and he's all there trying to take our guns. So he has been compared. This is really dangerous. He's been compared to people like that and being put on the same list. And the same thing as Aayan Hirsi Ali, who's an atheist who who fought her way to fight for women's rights and so on. I mean, Aayan has been. There was a petition against to stop her from speaking at the Brandeis, and it has won. And she didn't win. She didn't get the honorary award that she's supposed to get because some triggered leftists were bothered by the fact that she would get the award. And when she was trying to get to speak at Yale, there were also many protests against her. Unfortunately, from the Atheist and Humanist Association at Yale University, head by a guy called Chris Stedman, which I'm sure I think some of you are familiar with, who wrote the book Faithiest about interfaith work and so on.
Yeah.
His student association at Yale also tried to work hard to ban Aayan Hirsi from speaking at the university. So this is it's not like a single case in which I will say, no, it's just like the Southern Law Poverty Center that have a problem with Aayan or Maajid. It's a very big problem with the left in general. I mean, yes, you may find examples within the left who are mostly like atheists who understand that criticism of religion is important and so on, but there is a very significant amount of people who identify with the left. In Europe, it's much worse than we have here in the United States, by the way. And I think it's maybe the same in Canada, which also passed recently an Islamophobia law that is also trying to silence the criticism of Islam. A huge cancer, I would argue, huge cancer that grew up in the left in terms of political correctness and very misguided view of what social justice is and what are the true definition of defending minorities versus actually allowing freedom of speech and criticism of bad ideas that exist within minorities. And that confusion has been very well displayed by the Southern Law Poverty Center, which is an organization that I really respect. I mean, they really have done amazing work in trying to figure out white supremacy groups around the United States, and yet they don't seem to differentiate, that's the kind of the liberal disease that is growing up in the liberal brain right now, is that they don't seem to differentiate between criticism of Islam and trying to modernize the faith or trying to advocate for secular values and hating on Muslims. There's something that really confuses the liberal brain in that regard. And yes, you may find some examples here and there of people who don't acknowledge that, but you see that what happens to these people when they do speak out against Islam, I mean, people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and others, the moment they open their mouth about Islam, the moment you see articles left and right calling them Islamophobes and racists and all types of stuff, while when they bash Christianity all the way, nobody seems to care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Standing Rock with Nas Ishmael when he found out that Canada had just passed this anti-Islamophobia law, and now we got to figure out how he's supposed to challenge that because he's in Toronto. I mean, and he's being on the Council of Ex-Muslims for North America. I mean, how do you have to be able to criticize this belief system on the specific points where you find error?
Exactly.
I don't. How do they intend to enforce such a law? What kind of definitions are they using? Is this even enforceable?
I would say it's not even constitutional.
It's just a way of threatening people, obviously.
I can't believe that that law will pass the first test of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is freedom of speech is one of the first, if not the first, in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So it's competing rights, right?
If I might add, yeah, it's enforceable because they count on people policing one another, right? And all you have to do is complain about somebody, and there you go. They're in trouble.
Yeah, the self-policing
not only
state.
that. I mean, if they put you on a list like what happened with Maajid, Nawaz, and Aayan, this is another form of fighting against quote unquote Islamophobia, right? I mean, even here.
How do they put Maajid on this list when he is Muslim himself? I mean, how is it that the SPLC hasn't just my bad, I'm so stupid, let me just apologize and correct this error immediately before it draws too much attention? Why didn't that happen?
Well, I mean, you have to ask them because I cannot speak for them. But I think that the reason why they have put him is because he is critical of some other versions of Islam. He's critical of what he refers to as Islamism, which is the use of Islam as a political force, while he himself identifies as a Muslim. So they do seem to think that criticism of Islamism, which is what Maajid has criticized, is the same as criticizing and hating Muslims. So they don't seem to differentiate between this distinction.
Does that mean that Maryam Namazi is also going to be on the same list with him for the same reason?
I definitely think so. And I would say the same could be said about Sarah Haider from Ex-Muslims of North America, or Muhammad Saeed, or me. I mean, I'm definitely going to be on the list soon.
Well, I can't figure out how Sam Harris isn't on the list. I mean, Sam Harris is more than just a little critical of Islam. Calling it the mother lode of bad ideas. I mean, how did that not earn him a spot?
Also, why are they picking on somebody from England? I thought they were concerned with groups in America. Why are they picking on
good point.
Maajid, right?
Well, because Maajid also does work in America too. So he's. I think that the biggest issue, which I tried to research so much about this just to figure out what is what and how did that happen. It seems to me that, just to be clear, Maajid Nawaz is very much hated by Muslim organizations in America. Like, if you ask the most well-known Muslim organizations in America, which is CARE, which is Center for American Islamic Relations, and ISNA, which is Islamic North America, something like that, and there is the MSA, which is the Muslim Students Association. Maajid Nawaz and Satan are pretty much on the same level when it comes to how much they are hated. And the reason I think Maajid is very much hated by these organizations is because he himself is a former Islamist. So he knows the dynamics of how people join the Muslim Brotherhood, for example, or join and he has been exposing these kinds of stuff for the past years since he got out of prison and so on. So I assume, which I think it's the case, is that SPLC contacted the Muslim organizations, like the one I mentioned, like CARE and ISNA, and consulted with them what do they consider to be an anti-Muslim extremist. And considering that he is so hated by them, I think that that's probably one of the reasons why they have put him there. So,
but it wouldn't one of the requirements be, where Maajid is in the same category as you and I, when it comes to being against certain ideas, right? But neither of us are against Muslims.
Exactly. Yes. So they seem. I think that the confusion being made here is that the SPLC does not differentiate between a criticism of Islam and hating Muslims. So the line was broken when they have added both Maajid and Aayan there, because I think that is the definition of Islamophobia itself. If you look at the definition that has been pushed around for the past decades about the definition of Islamophobia, is the discrimination and hatred of Islam and Muslims, of the ideas and the people together. So Islamophobia is both the ideology and the people. So you cannot criticize either the ideology or the people, or hating the people. There's no line there.
Are you familiar, Faisal, with the speech that Nas Ishmael was giving recently, where he talks about how Islamophobia doesn't mean anything because it's an irrational fear of Muslims rather than a intelligent fear of Islam?
Yeah. This I haven't watched the speech specifically, but this argument has been pushed a lot by many people within ex-Muslim North America, including myself, is because that term has been very destructive, because it doesn't allow any form of discussion within Muslim communities, because now anybody who criticizes Islam from Muslim communities is labeled as Islamophobe or racist or bigot, and the same thing and that what mean is that this term itself has lost its meaning, and the people who are most harmed by it are not the actual bigots, because the actual bigots don't really care about being called bigots. But the people who are harmed by it are the people like us who are critical of Islam and got lumped with the bigots. So like now criticism of Islam has been equivalent to supporting Trump or siding with the KKK or siding with the xenophobes. So the people who are harmed by it are not the KKK, because they already know that they are on a hate list. But the people harmed by it are people like Nash and Sarah Haider and Muhammad Saeed and Maajid Nawaz the people who are critical of Islam within the community or outside of it.
Maybe, do you think that they picked Maajid Nawaz and Aayan Hirsi because they don't really have an inside view to what is hatred of Islam? Like, if somebody suggested Richard Dawkins as a Christianophobe or whatever, that wouldn't pass muster because we live in Western Christian culture, and we can differentiate. And they're making a judgment as an outsider. Like, is Donald Trump on the list?
No.
He should be.
They're putting people who are media figures. I mean, the people.
And
that
Donald Trump is not a media figure?
No, I think.
We'll get to him yet.
I think that the people that they have put. I mean, I think that there is when it comes to Maajid and Aayan, I think there is an intent there. There is an intent to, especially by Muslim organizations that I think are the ones that they have consulted with, to destroy these people's careers. Especially when it comes to Maajid. I mean, there have been many attempts to literally destroy his career and destroy his credibility all the way. And that is because many of the Muslim organizations that exist in America do not favor his views and do not like his views. They don't think, for example, that Islam needs a modernization. They think that Islam as it is right now is a pretty good version, like the version that talks about modesty culture and the version that talks about conservative values, literally, conservative Muslim values, is what Islam should be. And this talk about reformation and modernization, the stuff that Maajid is talking about, may suggest that Islam itself is not perfect. And they get really triggered, for the lack of a better word, they get triggered by this idea. And it seems to me that there is a very organized movement to just destroy Maajid. And I think that for people like Kerr and Isna and stuff, Maajid represents a much bigger threat to them than Donald Trump. Donald Trump, everybody is talking about him as a bigot. You look at CNN or MSNBC and all of the major outlets, he's already earned the label bigot, and everybody is talking about it. But Maajid, if you're going to put him on the same list as Trump, you can actually destroy his career, and that way he would be silenced forever.
I don't think anybody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to buy that. I mean, look what's happened, the backlash.
Well,
now.
you're not buying it. You're not buying it because you have the ability to be able to have a nuanced view. But if you look at them, if you go to liberal cities, and as I have spoken in many campuses around America and from East Coast to West Coast, many college students and many liberals and leftists don't even have the nuanced view that you have at the moment. This is like, if they're going to listen to the SPLC, which has lots of followers, I can assure you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, right now think Maajid Nawaz is an Islamophobe.
And there's no way to
people are buying it. People are buying it. That's a problem.
There's no way to communicate with the SPLC.
Well, we have. I mean, at least from my understanding, at least like 6,000-7,000 people that I know on social media, like based upon the petition, have contacted them and stuff. They're not changing their mind anytime soon. But the more pressure we put, the better. I mean, I really appreciate. I mean, Seth Andrews made a great video on the Thinking Atheist about this, and Sam Harris talked about it, and Richard Dawkins, I think, talked about it. I think we need to keep to shame the SPLC until they apologize and remove his name. And if they
has the SPLC ever experienced this kind of backlash for including anybody else in their list?
As far as I know, like the people, like the backlash that's happening is mostly happening about both Maajid and Aayan. I mean, the other people, the four people that they have put, which is Daniel Pipes and Pamela Geller and stuff, they are already like far right wingers who are already being called bigots all the time. So
no, I mean in the history of the SPLC, I mean, maybe from the perspective of SPLC, anytime they put anybody on the list, when they put the KKK on the list, maybe the KKK complained that they were not really a hate group and that they were being poorly represented. Who knows?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know about this. I haven't studied the history of the SPLC, but it seems that this seems to be one of the worst cases for them.
I would agree. I can't imagine, or I can't remember a single other time that there was a community backlash on anything that they put on their list.
Yeah.
I think they've had a bit of a history of leaving left-leaning extremists alone as well. They seem to be more going after the right-wing groups than anything in the left.
Yeah, I mean that could be a liberal. I mean, it's obviously a left-leaning organization. I mean that's undisputable, it seems. I mean, and that's fine by me. I mean that's fine that they have left-leaning or they're liberal and stuff. But what I have an issue with is their, I mean, obvious bias, as you can see. I mean, there is a bias because this view that criticism of Islam is equivalent to hatred of all Muslims is a view that is only shared by left-leaning people. So this is where I think it seems like their left-wing bias is obviously showing in doing that.
Is it also a really effective Muslim apologetics putting a spin on criticism of Islam?
Sorry?
Is it maybe also Muslim apologists have been really effective in putting a spin on criticism of Islam that's Islamophobia?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the use of language and shaming people. I mean, I happened to debate some of these Muslim apologists, and the language that they use of shaming white people especially, and try to remind them of slavery and the Holocaust and all types of things all types of the rhetoric that's been going on, and try to shame them and tell them, look, the rhetoric that you have used against the Japanese, look what it has led to. Any criticism of Islam would lead exactly to what the Americans, when FDR put the Japanese in internment camps, or what the Nazi Germany rhetoric was against the Jews, and that led to the Holocaust. So all types of criticism of Islam would lead to the same result as what white history and of slavery against slavery and mass genocide and so on. So yes, it's been very effective because now, so I mean, they're giving you obviously two choices, right? So they're giving you a choice that you are either with genocidal methods of exterminating people, or you are with Islam as a beautiful religion. And it's been very effective. I mean, there is a term that my friend Ali Rizvi coined, which is called the Islamophobia phobia, which is the fear of being perceived as Islamophobic, which is because they have associated Islamophobia with racism, bigotry. They made it a very negative term, right? So nobody wants to be called an Islamophobe, including Islamophobes themselves. So like, I mean, you can see somebody who is holding a Confederacy flag, right? And you tell them you're a racist. And they will say, no, I'm not a racist. So even the guy who is obviously holding racist views does not like to be called a racist. And the same thing happening with Islamophobia is that they made it a very negative term, and now everybody, and they have been throwing the term left and right about almost everything, to the way that now many people, especially including white people in general, because white people tend to be sensitive compared to the history that exists in Western Europe and the United States. So they try to appeal to that Western white guilt sensitivity.
I'm not sensitive, and you take that back because that hurt my feelings.
I'm sorry.
Are you triggered?
I apologize. That
was really that was gross and racist.
Next time. Huh?
That was gross and racist.
Yeah, so that's a. I mean, to get back to the question, I mean, that's a very effective method, and it really works. And actually, like, I can use it as well. Like, if I really want to go through this rabbit hole, I would actually make anybody who criticized me to be anti-brown, anti-refugee, anti-Iraqis. You are white. You have a racist history. If you criticize me, you hate people of color and you hate refugees, and I can use it. I mean, it's a dirty card. I mean, it's a very dirty identity politics garbage card. But it really works. Like
you called me gross and racist once, and I don't think I've ever been so honored in my life.
Yeah.
Coming from the sources it was, you know.
I saw.
Of course, you were teasing me, but you know.
I saw a piece of Muslim propaganda just 5 minutes from our house in Garland, Texas, outside of Dallas. It said, "Islam equals racial equality." What do you think of that?
Yeah. That's really interesting. So I mean, this is a very I'm very glad he called it propaganda. So for the past decades, I mean more than a decade since 9/11, the Muslim apologists have played a very amazing card, which is using the race card on people, and they have associated themselves right now with modern left-wing movement like Black Lives Matter. So now they have made the cause that if you're against Islam, you're against Black Lives Matter, which is a very effective methodology because now you are talking about race relations in America, which is, as you know, a very sensitive subject for many, including myself. And in that way, it's a very good way of silencing people. I've come for race relations and the Muslim world. You just need to look at Dubai and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and see how they treat Indians and Pakistanis and black people and people of different colors, and then you can talk and then people have the right to say like, oh look, America is racist. Well, America is, yes, I mean I'm not saying that America doesn't have racism, but if you just look at the major Arab world countries and if you look at Southeast Asia, and racism is the mainstream. I mean until today, the mainstream word for black people is slaves in Arabic. So the word Abid, so Abdullah, for example, the name Abdullah, which means the slave of Allah, right? So the word Abid is still used mainstream describing black people. Just imagine that. This is like if you go like to the most of Arab countries and you tell them what is the term for black people, they will say slave.
Yeah, the world of Islam had a huge slave trade a few hundred years back.
Yeah, the Arab slave trade, and it's called the Muslim slave trade, which has been one of the biggest in the world in terms of slavery, and it still exists. I mean, look at countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Dubai, like Arab Emirates and Dubai. Look at the slave labor that they bring from Southeast Asian countries, in which they give the passport to quote unquote a sponsor, and then the sponsor is the only one who give them the right to leave the country, and they also give him like 30-40% of his income, of the quote unquote worker income, which is being treated as a slave that doesn't have any rights. So you can, like if you Google on YouTube, you can see videos of like cab drivers in Saudi Arabia, like from Pakistan and stuff. You can see people like spitting on them or hitting them with the sandal or the shoe and stuff. And this worker doesn't have any freaking human right. Cannot complain, cannot say anything. If he complains, he has an owner. He has an owner that would be the person giving him the permission to stay and leave the country.
I think it's easy for them to say that Islam equals racial equality because a lot of us in the West don't know what you know about how they treat other races in some Islamic countries.
And the biggest issue is the fact that the only people or the most vocal people against Islam are people that most of us should be worried about, right? Like the people who are very vocal against Islam are Christian theocrats or far-right fascists. I mean, these guys represent like a significant amount of critics of Islam, unfortunately. And so what happened is that, back to the Islamophobia, so there is a fear of not sounding like a guy from Fox News. So there's a fear of so there's Sean Hannity. If you listen to Sean Hannity and he talks about Islam and Muslims and banning refugees and stuff, so there is a feeling that in order not to sound like Sean Hannity, you try to make Islam look beautiful in just defense of the bigotry that's being spewed by the people on the far right or the right wing. So that way people become, so when they put these ads, I mean, these ads are mostly targeting left-wing liberals. I mean, when they put these ads about Islam means peace, Islam means love, what they're targeting are the people who are afraid of sounding like right-wingers. So they'll be, oh, Islam is love, because Sean Hannity say Islam is war, therefore Sean Hannity is wrong, is fucked up. I'm going to be completely against Sean Hannity by saying Islam, so the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So as long as Sean Hannity says something, he has to be wrong, and I'm going to be the complete opposite of him. And these guys know this. They know the dynamics of U.S. politics. They know how polarized the discussions are in the United States. So in that way, they pander to the group that they know would be the most receptive to the message.
Takia, is that how you say it?
No, so you should be careful of this word, by the way.
Okay.
So this word has been popularized by the people that I was talking about, the right-wing crazies, to say that it is so takia. The original meaning of it comes from Shia Muslims who used to be afraid of saying they are Shia in Sunni-dominated countries. So it's anti-sectarian term. So Shia Muslims used to be persecuted a lot by Sunni Muslims, and it's still the case in many countries like Pakistan and so on. So they fake it. They say that they are Sunnis in order to avoid being persecuted in Muslim countries. So this is a mistranslation that happened by people on the right or far right who, as I said, we have to be careful of them as well. So they took this term and they popularized it as Muslims trying to fake their religion in order to appease their people. I mean, you don't really need to be a term for that. It's just manipulation. I mean, it's just these are propaganda machines that being pushed. It's just a way to manipulate public opinion.
Yeah, every time. Sorry, just thinking that every time I heard that word taqiya, in my head I was going da 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 da. Sorry, but go ahead, Aron.
Thank you for correcting me because it's a word I've used before, and I had a different take because, of course, I don't, I'm not corrected like I have been. But I thought it meant sort of apologizing on behalf of the religion, and it was okay to lie to outsiders of the religion generally to, position Islam as a religion of peace, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a pure manipulation. I mean, also, like, what happens is that, I mean, the Muslims generally get very defensive about their religion. I can say the same about other religious people, too, is that they get so defensive about their religion. And many of them, including those who spout this Islam as the religion of peace, they hardly know anything about Islam. I mean, when you go argue with them about their own religion, like you quote I was having a debate and I was quoting like verses about like infidels and like how you should treat infidels and sex slaves and so on. And literally the guy was like telling me, no, that's not in the Quran. That's not in the Quran. I thought, and then I brought the Quran to him. I thought, like, can you see this? Like, don't you see this verse? And he kept telling me that all what I was saying was not in the Quran. And then when I told him the verse that I was saying, then he told me it's out of context, or God works in mysterious ways, or maybe what was applicable today, that day is not applicable today, or something of that sort. So it's the same religion. So like many of these defenders of Islam or Islam's religion of peace and so on, many of them don't really know much about their faith. They just get defensive of pure like tribalism, right? Like you are a Muslim, you grew up to be a Muslim, your parents are Muslim. Some person comes out and tell you, no, Islam is not a peaceful religion. And the first response would be to get defensive about it. And you get defensive. And one of the defense cards is calling a white guy a racist. It's so easy. Like, a white guy comes in, Sam Harris comes in, you call him a cisgender, racist, white male, homophobe, transphobe, Islamophobe, you all of that. And then you end the conversation. And it's one of the best ways to silence people.
I say we behead those who say that Islam is not a peaceful religion.
That's a good one. I'm sorry if I'm taking so much of the conversation.
No, that's okay.
Well, you're the most expert in this topic.
Yeah, that's why I think we should move on to the American election. So thank you, Faisal. It's always interesting to get that perspective. We kind of need that because, we don't see Islam so much here. Yesterday, I was out getting some insulin for my cat, and I was stopped off at an Edo for some Japanese takeout, and there was a young Muslim woman, obviously Muslim, because she's wearing a headscarf, and I was thinking this is all about modesty, and here she is with these really, really tight jeans, knowing full well she has an excellent body. Where's the modesty there? Where did that?
well, there's actually a joke about this. It's called, she's trying to satisfy Allah and Abdullah.
Oh, okay.
So it says about like women who wear tight clothing and hijab at the same time. I mean, obviously, I have no issue with that. I mean,
no, neither do I.
We live in a liberal country and so on, but like, so in one way she's trying to satisfy Allah by covering her hair, and in one way she's trying to satisfy Abdullah by wearing tight clothing. So I mean that is the proverb that's being said. But I mean it may have some sexism. So I hope nobody's offended. But
I'm more offended by the cultural appropriation, Randy.
Yeah, recently
Japanese
Playboy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Playboy magazine, which is, as you know, like it started. I mean, one of the missions of Playboy magazine was to fight against modesty culture, right? They have featured and fetishized the beauty of hijab. So, like, they published an article recently. Playboy magazine, by the way, Playboy published an article saying how hijab and modesty is actually wonderful. Just imagine how insane the politically correct people have become. Like it's really like it would be. So they were like trying to fetishize how like women covering up is actually a sign of empowerment and a sign of feminism. And I mean, not to bring it closer to our home, The Daily Show, which is now being led by this guy from South Africa, Trevor Noah, whatever his name. So Trevor Noah interviewed this woman who used to be Obama's advisor on Islamic affairs, or a job like that. Her name is Dalia Mujahid, who is Egyptian Muslim, and he invited her to talk about hijab and Islam, and he was literally defending modesty culture with her, and he was like saying like, oh, look how the hijab is a sign of empowerment and feminism and so on. So this is the Daily Show, which is a show viewed by millions of people. Okay, just imagine somebody defending virginity culture in the Christian world. Just imagine Daily Show just doing that, and nobody they would go blast on them, right? Like, imagine if Pat Robertson will be interviewed by The Daily Show, and Pat Robertson come in and say, you know what, women should cover up, and virginity culture, women should stay virgins until they get married. If he just say that, I can assure you Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert and all of the famous comedians in America will make fun of him endlessly, okay? But a brown Muslim person, came out and defended modesty culture in the name of Islam, and The Daily Show was clapping for her. He was clapping for her. This is what I was talking about, the liberal delusion.
That to me, to defend modesty culture in another culture that you're not a member of and you know very little about, that to me is another form of racism. I just don't see racism as the big KKK racism or white supremacists blowing up a building racism. But what I also think that it's racist to condescend and belittle another culture by saying that this purity culture is somehow empowering because it's enforced.
Exactly. I mean,
how could it be empowering when you're forced to do it?
Welcome to the regressive left.
That's that bigotry of low expectations kind of concept, right? Yeah.
It's the regressive left for you. So anyway.
Thank you, Linda. Great comment.
Let's move on to the election on Tuesday. I voted quite a while back, but
there's an election on Tuesday?
Yeah, apparently there's some shindig going on. I'm getting a case of beer and a big bag of popcorn, and I'm going to sit down and watch from up here.
I'm getting some cyanide tablets.
What's
Randy, you're an American citizen?
I'm dual, yeah.
Oh, I see. Nice.
So I vote in two
I thought
federal.
that Canadians cannot vote in this election.
Well, about 10% of the population of Canada has dual citizenship. So it's quite a few of us.
I didn't know that.
It's quite high.
I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah, it's very high.
Like only American or other citizenship, like French or...
I have Canadian citizenship. Oh, you mean can you have it? I think
there's other dual citizens.
Yeah, there are.
Oh, you mean the 10%?
Germany.
That 10%, is it all American
That's
dual?
all just American Canadian dual citizenship.
Interesting. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, consider our 90% of our population is within the first 100 miles of the 49th parallel.
I have to ask you about that because, of course, my wife and I are seriously considering becoming Canadian.
No way. Why?
Well, this election we're discussing now.
Yeah.
I've had so many people ask me if they can come to my place and sponsor them.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm thinking about someplace like in Edmonton, maybe.
You got to remember that you're not riding your motorcycle except for 4 months of the year.
Well, right now,
unless you got snow tires.
Yeah,
Well,
entire
because we're kind of
I'm
in a
moving-
recession right now, right?
Calgary would be
don't
better.
know. Well, recession. I think your chances might be better if you apply where there's sort of a better economy.
Yeah, we're a very oil-driven economy in Alberta, so it's
Our
been pretty
unemployment
bad.
rate is pretty high here in Alberta
it's,
too.
it's almost
Yeah, don't get me
10%,
started
something
about
like
don't get me started about the oil-driven economy, because remember I just came back from Standing Rock.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I'm
we
moving
just
to
booted
Texas.
the government that made us that way, though. Might get better. I don't know.
No, it's going to take a long time for us to get away from a purely resource-based economy to something else.
Yeah.
You're looking
That's
for
true of all of North America, not just Alberta. It's a full buy-in into an entirely different infrastructure that we just haven't invested anything into, right?
Yeah, of course, I'm pro-nuclear, so
Yeah.
go
I'm pro-nuclear, but tough sell.
Nuclear?
Yeah, I heard that too. I kind of let that slide. It's
Yeah, my wife wants
to.
to start an energy farm, wind and solar.
That works too.
Quite a bit of wind here.
Very cool.
Wind power.
Yeah, Pincher Creek has
Medicine
got a lot
Hat
of
is
wind.
windy.
Well, Lethbridge is extremely windy.
I'm gonna move. I'm
Pincher
gonna move
Creek
to
has got-
Texas if Trump becomes president.
Anyway, let's get this back to the
You
election.
lived in Texas. You lived in Houston.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move to Texas if Trump becomes president.
I heard
Why?
Houston isn't really part of Texas.
Texas.
What
wants
difference
to
would
see
it make? Oh,
Because-
yeah, of course, yeah.
An oasis of reason.
Because Texas very well may jump onto the other side of the wall with Mexico.
Yeah. Well, I heard it might go blue.
It's not really quite as close as some of the other states.
It's purpley
Purpley.
right now. Needs a
To
little
bring
more
up the map.
years.
Interesting thing is that our cities are blue.
Yeah,
But all of the rural
pretty,
areas
pretty same here.
Yeah,
Are
Yeah, same here.
crimson, yeah.
that's like typical across America.
Yeah, I think that's very typical. You know, rural versus urban voting patterns are very different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
like
very clear this
Pennsylvania.
time.
Pennsylvania, like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, vote mostly Democrats, while what's in the middle mostly votes Republican.
Yeah, that's a pattern that gets repeated time after time, I think. And I vote in California, so it's an absentee ballot. So
That's
It's
an easy vote.
99.9% Democratic.
Yeah, it's going to pretty much go Democrat. But there are some of these swing states like Arizona, Colorado.
Nevada's getting there. North Carolina, Florida.
My understanding is that Hillary has 260 electoral votes wrapped up.
How's that wrapped up compared to?
She needs
not wrapped
270.
Well, I'm on 538, and they have her at 291 at 65%. So she has 260 wrapped up. That's good news.
I was listening. We get a lot of our. We have very good news services in Canada. They're a lot better than Fox News.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a contradiction in terms, but we get some very good interviews with people that are in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and even the Republican Party representatives are saying, yeah, Hillary's got this fairly well wrapped up, unless something really bizarre goes on in the swing states. It's just too much of a hill.
Well, it's an
for
interesting
Trump to
thing
climb.
because, I mean, it's making me, pull for or plead for the victory of somebody that I do not like at all. But I realize that it's like the lesser of two evils, right? The only way that she becomes the lesser of two evils is by putting fucking Cthulhu up there.
Yeah.
You have to have the
Cthulhu.
marmalade. You have to have the marmalade Mussolini. You have to have a neo-fascist. I mean, the absolute most incompetent, least comprehensible person that we've ever had. I mean, it's like the most hated candidate in Democratic history goes up against the most hated candidate in history.
Yeah, but don't you think some of that hatred against Hillary is unjustified? I mean, there is lots of
some of it.
If you want to say that hatred, and you're talking about my hatred,
no. But I think that she's not as bad as many people think she is. I mean, I would say I'm very happy that in the United States, obviously I'm not giving you a purely American perspective, but I'm giving you more of a Western European, global, what's happening around in Western Europe and so on. I'm very happy that the United States have chosen a person which is more of a center left than a far left. I mean, that's my own view. I'm very happy
however,
we have a Hillary than Bernie. I mean, that's my view.
I was just going to say, Bernie's center-left from a Western European
He's
perspective.
left of Hillary.
Bernie is far left.
He is to our perspective here in Canada.
Yeah,
He's not far left at all.
You guys are far left already.
Maybe, but he's not far.
No,
our conservatives
we can go farther.
are saying Bernie should have been the one. That's our conservatives here.
Everybody says Bernie should be the one, and the thing is I feel that Bernie was the one. When you say that that America selected Hillary, no, they didn't. I'm not convinced of that. I'm convinced that Bernie was winning this thing, and
When I explored the base, though, like her base, the people that voted for her in the last election versus who's voting for her in this election, I can believe she won those votes. So I find it always concerning that people say she stole it.
No, I don't.
Yeah, with all of the allegations, and there are so many different types, and we were watching this as it was all happening, right? We were watching it when it went down in Nevada, when it went down in Arizona, when the Secretary of State of Arizona admitted that voter suppression was going on in their state, and then they made a similar admission in Illinois, and they made a similar admission in New York, and that they all said in all three cases they're not going to even investigate it until after the election, when it no longer matters. But they come out, you have state officials admitting that voter suppression had happened.
I voted for Bernie in the primaries, and I voted for Hillary last week. I don't see anybody running for president as the one. I don't vote for a messiah to save us all. I vote for human beings. Human being systems are flawed. So I'm just going to vote for the best choice that I have.
In Canada, I end up voting for the party over the person, and I usually do. I choose the policies over the person.
Yeah. No, that's what I do. That's what I
end up having to do.
Yeah, looking at Bernie's policies and comparing them to Hillary's, Hillary is essentially a Republican in all of when you look at the policies, the things that she votes for, the things that she endorses. She votes more Republican than any Democrat I'm aware of.
I haven't seen that in her history, though, when I go look at it. Like, actually, she voted with Bernie more times than with the Republicans.
She did vote with Bernie more times than with Republicans, yes, but she still sides with the Republican line on a great many votes.
Don't you think that's a good thing? Don't you think that what we need in America is somebody who would work with people from the different party than to alienate them more than we have at the moment? I mean, would you rather have a president that at least works across party lines? Because we have seen it with Obama, the idea of Republican versus Democrat does not really get things done. You want to get things done, and sometimes you have to work with the other party and compromise, and that's sometimes a good thing. I mean, one of the things that I disliked very much about Bernie was the fact that he was very much an ideologue. I mean, he was proud of himself. He said, "I have been voting on the same values for 40 years." 40. I mean, if somebody has not changed their minds in 40 years, I think there is something wrong with them. I mean, unless somebody is Jesus Christ, in which he's right all the time, but unless somebody is right all the time, we always change our minds. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to be left-wing on some issues, right-wing on some issues, centrist on some issues. I mean, that's a good thing, right?
I'll grant you that Hillary has changed her mind on a number of things that she was shown to be wrong about. The difference between Hillary and Bernie was that Bernie was never shown to be wrong.
Well, I'm not sure about that, though. We can have an argument about it. I mean, on foreign policy, for example, one of the last debates he had with Hillary, he said that he would make Saudi Arabia and Iran working together. Okay, just think about that for a minute. Saudi Arabia and Iran, who are the leaders of the proxy wars that's happening in the Middle East, somehow he's going to be able to make them work together to defeat ISIS. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll grant you that, and I'll also throw in one other. I would personally love to have a few moments to explain GMOs to Bernie Sanders. I would love to do that.
Please.
Yeah. Whereas Hillary gets it. Hillary gets it. She gets the science. She scored the highest on all the science questions they put out to them. I think it was Lawrence Krauss that did that. She scored the highest on all the questions.
It was it on Scientific American, right? The Scientific American article about which candidates are better. I think Jill Stein scored like one of the lowest.
Yeah, no
she's
kidding.
Like, is cuckoo on almost everything, but she's like GMOs are bad and Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi is bad.
Oh.
And
she's like,
and we were
isn't
talking
she?
about going with the policies, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders recognizes that one, the money in politics issue, the oligarchy issue. These are huge, but then there's also the environmental issue, right, which needs to be addressed urgently, not incrementally. And this is just a fact. We can't do this incrementally. And so I'm at the point now where since Bernie didn't get in and we're not going to have any kind of urgent address on environmental issues, then we are going to be too little, too late, whatever we do. So the best option we've got right now isn't enough.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's going to, and imagine if you did try to change things overnight, the tax burden on people, the drastic change in lifestyle that would have to take place. And we are talking about gutting an entire infrastructure here of, North America.
We are talking about gutting an infrastructure. I don't see it as being hard on the individual as far as, like taxation and things like that, because there are ways that we can easily switch from one to the other. We were recently, and we were in Las Vegas, and forgive me, by the way, I'm recovering from laryngitis for the last week. So my voice is not completely back yet. But anyway, we were in Las Vegas recently. Now, they run a hydroelectric dam called Hoover Dam that powers not only Las Vegas, but much of Southern California. And when I lived there in the 1980s, they had this overflow where the water would come up to the top of the dam and it would overflow into this channel, and it was a raging torrent as the entirety of the Colorado River raged into the overflow valve. But when we were there last year, and we were there this year, the Hoover Dam, the water is 150 feet below that overflow. 150 feet below. Mm-hmm. They can no longer generate the power, much less the obvious loss of water, as more and more people move into Las Vegas, and nobody figures out that you can't keep moving people in when there's no water. But what they did for the power issue was they built a solar farm, and I mean quick. They built a massive solar farm on the other side of town, opposite from where the Hoover Dam is. And this is how they're running the strip, all the lights and everything, all that power consumption.
Yeah, what about the vehicles?
The vehicles could easily be converted. We had Elon Musk give over the patents on his batteries, his home charging batteries, his solar panel rooftops, the electric motors for the cars. All of these patents have just been given up, right? So every automotive company right now could retool for all electric cars, and they would be better cars than what we already have. And we could retool for that so that all the cars in 2018 would be all electric, not hybrids, all electric. And you could charge them up for free across the country because there's already supercharging stations everywhere. So it would be a much better thing. And if you start talking about, well, what are you going to do to the job situation? Well, unfortunately, Tesla's already doomed us in that too, because the cars drive themselves. And now, because of their stellar record, they're now having trucks drive themselves.
Yeah, I think there's a case to be made for the potential of innovation to stimulate jobs that we don't even know about yet. And, I agree with what you're saying, that it wouldn't be all that difficult, but I think it's a matter of the government incentivizing this kind of innovation. And they're not doing it. They're sinking money into, ridiculous equipment for wars and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
And what is the war all about? The war is all about oil.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Stop the obsession with oil. It's an addiction. And if we
I'd say it's a bit about religion too, but okay.
Yeah,
it's not.
ISIS took over the oil field. They got rich. There's a big problem there now. But the thing is, Obama got them off of a lot of foreign oil. So, but the thing is, now we need where are these incentives for these alternatives, and where's the industry, and where's
also in Europe? You have all these mass transit systems.
Yeah,
which the United States just does not have.
Alberta doesn't have it either. I mean, everybody's on the road, and the road is getting so packed. And the road
is actually a bigger problem environmentally than the cars are, because it means that migrating species end up being speed bumps. So if we could change to a mass transit system, that would be great. Ultimately, the biggest answer to all of our problems, honestly, is the scariest answer that nobody wants to consider, and that is population reduction.
Yes. Yeah, I think non-coercive endorsement of birth control is.
But then we've got to do everything against birth control and against sex education and against contraceptions and against abortions, because we have to bring as many souls as we can unto the Lord and continue raping and what is it that the Bible said to be fruitful and multiply and dominate and subdue the earth. The Bible should have had an expiration date on that command.
To be honest, is like the world population is one of the least subjects being talked about when it talks about climate change, which is very worrisome. I mean, the fact that there are already more people than enough. Like there's 7 billion people on this planet. I think that's so much already. I mean,
atheists need to take over the world and solve this problem.
No, the rapture's going to come and save us all.
Yeah.
I'm going to Mars.
Okay, realistically,
well, maybe not us.
We need more taxes going to these incentives, and you're not going to get to be leader of any of these modern countries by saying you're going to raise taxes by 50%. That's the problem. I found with Hillary, she's been trying to get universal health care in since her husband was president, and she got smashed for that. So then she tried to bring forward a more right-wing palatable version of it. They've got Obamacare finally, and they had to fight for that. It's just
and they had to fight against the insurance companies for that. What they need to be doing is a national health care system, like other European companies have. And she won't do that. Bernie wanted to do that, but Hillary won't do that because she's beholden to the pharmaceutical company and to the insurance companies.
She got smashed for trying to do what he did. It might be more palatable for people now, but it took how much to even just get Obamacare going. It's the Republicans. It's those right-wingers. You gotta.
Yeah,
how do you deal with that?
That goes back to the conversation on what is pragmatic and what is idealistic over here.
Exactly.
And Obama did a conversation with Bill Maher. I don't know if you have seen it recently.
I have, yeah.
And they were talking about this issue. So, like, Obama was talking to Bernie about this. And we are not starting a system from scratch. I mean, yes, you can have all the beliefs that you want, but at the same time, you cannot start a system from scratch. You have to build up on a system that already exists. And the system that we already exist right now is that we have people who are dependent a lot on insurance companies and profit motive companies and insurance companies and so on. And you have to be able to create a system that matches that. And Obamacare was one step forward. I mean, obviously, it made many people unhappy because it's neither this or that. But
do you have any idea how much I pay for insurance every month?
I know it's terrible.
This is on the affordable insurance plan.
Yes, but the issue is that how can you just take off all insurance companies in a day or in a 4-year presidency, considering
and there's no way the Republicans will allow that.
We are facing that regardless, no matter what. We are facing that anyway. Remember when I said about the Tesla, the trucks that are driving themselves, right? And they're already putting commercial trucks on the road that are robots that are driving themselves already. Now, the trucking industry is the single biggest industry the United States has. If that goes automated, robot trucks, it will not be possible to deal with the overwhelming unemployment. It will be such that it will be not possible for people to get jobs. They will have to be subsidized by the government. We will have to go a full-on socialist state.
And retrain everybody in something else.
Yeah, but how can you do that? How can you do that in 4 years? I mean, let's be realistic here. Like, I don't think we are going to have self-driving cars in 4 years, and like it's all had to be done in a very incremental way by building.
You know that we've had self-driving cars for the last 4 years, right?
Yeah, but how many people have them? I mean, you can go to the West Coast and the East Coast and you see some charging stations and so on. But even here in New York, like, yes, you have some Teslas here and there, but that's like maybe 5 to 6% of what the cars we have at the moment.
But now that commercial companies who can afford to do this are doing it, then you've got a decade. You've got a decade before there's no trucking industry.
Yeah, but that's still a decade. It's not. I'm very sure it's going to take more. It's going to take. I mean, we have a complete system that is dependent on it. I mean, it's really. I think.
Understand that the population continues.
When the horse and buggy go,
the population continues to rise while the jobs continue to diminish.
And we've seen innovations take over very quickly. Like I was just giving you an example of the car versus a horse and buggy, right?
Well, even if it takes, say, 10 years to change over, do you think anybody's going to do anything until it's a crisis?
No, nobody's going to do anything until it's a crisis.
Of course not.
Until
it's
it is
too
affordable.
Late. I can't really afford a hybrid at the prices they're at now, even, let alone an electric car. We need Tesla to step up and be like a Ford. We need a new Ford person to come along and make this stuff affordable.
Well, what we need is mass transit.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, that too. I'm on board with that big time.
Yeah,
here in town, in where I live, you can walk faster than the bus will take you. You can walk across town faster than the bus goes.
And that's the case for most cities in America. I mean, including big cities like Los Angeles, for example. Like Los Angeles, they only have a mass transit for like downtown. And if you go outside downtown, you have to drive all over, like to go from Santa Monica to Hollywood. And that's like Los Angeles.
So now they've got Uber and Lyft, right? And these are taking over the taxi companies, and these are cheaper than the taxi companies. And these are going to be competing with the bus systems now. But here's the beautiful thing. Uber and Lyft are also going automated, which means you're going to be sitting in a taxi with no driver. The car is driving itself, which means you can drive home from work you can drive home from the bar, drunk off your ass. You're the only person in the car, and you're drunk, but you're not drunk driving because the car is driving. Which means, why not take your own car? Why not tell your car to drive you home, and then you can't be arrested for drunk driving anymore because the car's driving?
Yeah, I mean, these are issues that we're gonna deal with in the future, right? It's like, I mean, this definitely what the future is gonna be like. I think with the rise of Tesla and Elon Musk and stuff. But I don't think that the change is gonna happen slowly. I think the change is gonna happen really slowly. I think that to have more than 50% of driving cars in America will take at least, in my estimation, would be 3-4 decades. I mean, it's gonna.
I don't think so.
It's gonna. You think that in 30-40 years you're gonna let the people in the Midwest and the South and like the 200 million people who are dependent on cars right now to have self-driving cars? You think that it's going to take 4 years? No, that's
not 4 years.
You're much more optimistic than I am.
It's going to be a standard thing.
Look at advertising for cars too. They driving a car is fun. It's a pleasurable experience, and that's an enculturated thing in a lot of people's thinking. They get the beautiful car because it's a status symbol, blah blah blah, right? So it's not just a matter of we're losing our functional thing, right? Vehicle isn't like food where we need to eat to survive kind of thing. People drive because they enjoy it.
And farmers aren't,
for one reason,
going to just be on board with this either, I don't think. There's going to be some holdouts that'll be like, I'm never getting that.
Did you say farmers?
Farmers and other folks.
Farmers have always needed their own means of transport. Obviously, you're not taking groceries. You're not taking your crops onto the subway.
But those are starting to become self-driving now, tractors.
Some.
Well, it's
all
being
somebody
done.
has to do is load that big transport truck, don't they?
I mean, someone needs to make transportation great again.
Yeah.
And then on top of everything that they're doing about the sex education, the abstinence only kind of thing where there's no abortions, there's no contraceptions,
not 19 kids and counting.
And then they make it even worse by cutting all of the welfare benefits programs that would have, supported, teen mothers and so
Planned
forth.
Parenthood.
So they've just created a positive feedback loop with negative results, right? And then on top of that, they don't want to have death with dignity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and these are for religious reasons because
yes,
only religious
reasons.
Death requires that you have to have suffering, which is why suicide is the only form of death that the Bible does not endorse.
Yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate that these conversations are being had in 2016 North America. I mean, it's really, this stuff should be taken for granted that. Sex education and abortion and all of this kind of stuff that you mentioned should be taken for granted. I mean, we should not. It's very unfortunate that you have a significant amount of the population in the United States that believe that. So, like, eventually you would have to, in order to get anything done, you would have to compromise at least a little bit to be able to move things a bit forward.
Yeah, and the fact that Trump has so many votes that he does now, I'm disillusioned. I'm completely disillusioned about how progressive we are.
Wait, what?
Well, I think there. I mean, I don't know who invented this term, but like two Americas. But it seems like there is two Americas. I mean, there is an America that like. I mean, I don't know if you guys know Alex Jones, but I've came to know Alex Jones very recently. Thanks to
this election.
Thanks to the internet.
Hear that.
But like, it's really crazy that Alex Jones' viewership are in the millions.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people who actually like watch and believe this guy. Just imagine we live in a world and there are people who actually believe this guy.
Well, not only that, if you look who he is, if you actually look up who this guy is, it says that he's supposed to be some comedian. No, I think he actually quite believes what he says half the time or most of the time. Does he not?
A few years ago, 3 years ago, Alex Jones used the same studio as Matt Dillahunty for the Atheist Experience TV show. So Alex Jones and Matt Dillahunty were walking into the same soundstage just on different days of the week.
Does Alex believe what he says?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See? But if you look him up, they describe him as a comedian and everything he says is a joke. Yeah,
that's a CYA language.
Same thing until I saw Alex Jones on Fox News with what the hell's the British guy?
Oh, no. Yeah, I know who you're thinking of.
Yeah, so they did this interview where Fox News comes out looking like the sane ones.
I believe you.
And Alex Jones was off the fucking chain. He was out of his mind. And Piers Morgan would try to ask a reasonable question, trying to reason with the man. And Alex Jones was all over the place. He was just off his meds or using someone else's meds.
I'm trying to figure out what exactly he has. He doesn't fit any standard crazy. He's just crazy.
No, I mean it's like a far right rhetoric. I mean it's alarmist, like anti free trade, anti globalism, anti socialism, It's like this kind of far right white nationalism plus. Like I don't know, like some libertarianism here and there, and like this is. I mean,
no wonder he loves Trump.
Yeah, I mean, he loves Trump a lot. I mean, it feels like Trump is their messiah.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I mean, we brought up the name Messiah a couple of times, and I was not looking at Bernie as being a messiah. I was looking at Bernie as somebody who has policies that match what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
You know, not on the GMO thing. You know, like I said, there's a couple of things I would like to talk to Bernie about. You know, like where you said that he's not an atheist. I would love to have that conversation with him because I think he's in the place that I was several years ago before I realized what an atheist is. Fuck, I forgot where I was going with that, so I'll just sit back.
Well, there's no way an atheist
that's a pragmatic
president right now. Anyways.
Yeah.
The United States is not ready for Bernie.
I think Aron Ra, you are smarter than many of the Bernie supporters that I know. Just want to give you credit on that.
Backhanded compliment.
That reminds me. Thank you. You gave me the clue where I was going with. Yeah. We make a lot of fun of Republicans, right? As just being the example of crazy that they have become. You know, but then the Republicans can point to libertarians and say, well, at least we're not as crazy as those fuckers.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't understand libertarianism.
There are people that are ready for Bernie, but there's a lot of people that aren't.
Well, here's a question. How did Trump get to where he is now? How did this happen?
If you look at his supporters, they say 30% of his supporters belong to those online white hate groups online. They took just a random 10,000 and found that a third of them belong to these hate groups.
And they listed down, you know, that Trump supporters are the ones that show a propensity to believe that Obama is a Muslim, that Obama was foreign-born, you know, that the global warming is a hoax. You know, they go through this list of all these crazy beliefs. I mean, they may as well just have put up a poster of my mother.
Oh no!
Well, hey, you know,
he brought it up. He brought it up, so I got to tell the story because it involves his mother and Faisal. We had Faisal over for dinner, his mother comes in and she goes, I hear that Iraqis are uneducated.
Oh,
Because she knew Faisal was Iraqi.
Oh my goodness.
And Faisal speaks at least 2 languages that I know of fluently, and she speaks the one, and
Jesus language.
That's just not self-evident that all Iraqis are uneducated.
Just how do you start a conversation like that?
Yeah, I mean, that was a weird conversation starter.
Yeah.
You should have spoken in another language.
Is she
That would
voting
have
for
shut
Trump?
Yes.
There you
Yes.
go. This explains. But how are there so many people that are like that?
Okay,
Yeah.
so my thought was, like he reminds me of a carnival sideshow kind of thing, right? And I think of that quote by Barnum or Bailey or whatever. Barnum, I think it was.
Yeah.
They're born
You know,
every
you can
Sucker
put,
born
yes.
a minute to take.
Well,
but
that
there's-
one too.
These are
You
like
can
2
fool some of the
suckers and
people
one to take
all
'em.
the time, and all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people. You know, he's fooling all of the people some of the time, or some of the people all of the
Half
time.
of the people.
Basically, right? He's a 2-bit carny, and he's good at it.
Christine's Canadian, and is everybody else Canadian except for me and Aron and Faisal?
I'm half and
Yeah.
half.
Twyla and I are Canadian. Randy's
Oh, half Canadian. That's right. You
We're all
told us.
Albertans.
Yeah, Randy already said he's in California.
Yes. So maybe Randy and Aron and Faisal, perhaps because he lives here, could explain to you Trump's support.
Well,
'Cause
I can't
Faisal was
because-
saying there's 2 Americas,
Yeah.
and I grew up in Texas, and I've had to defend that I'm American my entire life, even though I was born here.
Yeah.
They don't really get it because they don't have to. Like if it affected them more, maybe they would. But they don't. They have a very poor understanding of economics, and if there's a recession, perhaps they feel like, well, immigrants are taking their jobs. If there's a problem with terrorism, we should get rid of all of that ethnic minority, and there won't be a problem with terrorism. They apply these broad, sweeping solutions.
Generalizations.
Yeah. To
Well, respectfully, if I might say, it might be the case, and I'm not talking about anybody here on this podcast, obviously, but Canadians might well be more informed about American politics than you guys are, because you get a
I've had to
particular type of
school
media,
people.
right?
I've had to school
Well,
people
what
there on what the Electoral College is.
What I have noticed is that people in any country that I've been to are more informed about our politics and geography than we are.
I'll give you that.
Why?
And they are poorly educated about civics, and Canadians perhaps.
We know all about
If we were to take civics tests, maybe Canadians would pass with a higher score on American civics than America would.
Yeah, maybe.
It's an education problem. But the thing that we could speak to more is why is there that education problem, and why are so many people supporting Trump?
Yeah.
Well, I
We
think
know-
media's
we
got a
know-
big role in it as well.
We know
Yeah,
all that
the
we need to
media
know
there
about
is crazy.
civics, and we don't need to buy no Honda.
Uh-huh.
I think just to add a bit, because I got to know, like, through working in some international affairs and some of that, and I can probably give you a perspective a bit on that is a bit different. That could be a bit positive about Trump supporters that you don't want to hear. But generally, when there is economic anxieties and fear followed by fear, there is lots of rise of far-right groups that happen as a result of that. I mean, we're seeing it in the so-called, what you call so-called Europe, right? The educated Europe. But Europe, for example, if you look at Austria, which is a country that is far more educated than America is, right? They have a choice right now between a party that was started by a former Nazi, okay? It's called the quote-unquote the Freedom Party, and versus the Green Party, which is the equivalent of the craziest of Jill Stein, okay? And that is something happening equivalent all over Europe, which is like happening.
Yeah.
And most of it happens up as a result of fear of Muslim immigration. So like within France, after the terrorist attack that happened in Paris and Charlie Hebdo and
Those were reckless, though.
yeah, no, but there is a the people who have committed them are Muslim people. Like, so the refugee discussion come as a result of fear of Muslim people. So and that is, I think, happening to some extent as because when you have fear, when you have a fearful population, you have the media pushing up, oh, like attack here, attack there, we should all be afraid, etc. Then there's always the people who are going to be propagandists and going to make use of that. And also when you have the political correctness that as I was talking about with the SPLC putting Maajid Nawaz on an extremist list, when you have a left failing miserably, I would argue, to address these issues, then people going to cling in to the people who give them answers. And what's happening, so there's a significant reason why the rise of the far right in Europe is mostly explained by just the terrorism question. As for, add to the terrorism question, you have the economic anxieties in which you have recessions and so on, and you have a significant amount of blue-collar workers and people who are dependent on, many of them just need to finish a middle school and being able to work in a coal mine, right? And now they can see that the green jobs and solar jobs and so on are mostly taken by, you have to have at least a bachelor degree or a technical degree or a master degree to be able to get these jobs. And if you look at the companies that work in solar and you look at their worker force, you see that many of them are actually immigrants, like Indians and Pakistanis and Chinese, and so
educated.
I know, but to take the perspective of a white Midwest uneducated American, he lost his job because America is shifting more towards green. Obviously, shifting not as fast as many people like Aron Ra would like it to be, but it's shifting towards that direction. And these people are losing their jobs, and then many of them are fearful or afraid and stuff. And then there comes Mr. Donald Trump, who is a media figure, who knows how to play the language, who knows how to manipulate people, and comes in and tell them, you know what, guys, these foreigners, these brown people, they come, they're rapists, they're criminals. I assume some of them are good people, and at least he said that. He said, I assume some are good people. So he did not want to generalize. But so he comes in, speaks this language that is, I would argue that it's very fruitful in this kinds of environment. It's very fruitful when you're talking to white and educated people, and also fearful, and some of them have reasonable fears, by the way. I'm not going to dismiss all their fears as just being irrational. So anyway, he comes in, he speaks as a propaganda, able to win their votes. So that is, I would argue that could be one of the main reasons why we have someone like Trump with the significant support that he has. He's a very good speaker. He's a very good speaker to these type of people. I mean, he speaks in a very third grade language. I mean, he's not. He does not speak a sophisticated language. And
that's another thing. Another thing. That's a basis of his popularity, just like you said. But the fact that it is third grade. It's like when you talk about the two Americas. You got one half of America that's looking at this guy going, "You didn't answer the question. You spoke for 5 minutes. You didn't say anything."
Yeah, the other half are
cheering. And then other people think that he got the answer and the right answer. He didn't have an answer at all.
Yeah. Well, that's the power of rhetoric and persuasion, right? That's the power of rhetoric and persuasion. Hitler was also a brilliant, charismatic rhetorician. You know,
Trump's not a.
If I'm going to credit, well, Trump is a goddamn idiot moron, and I can't speak any. You know, I can't even go into a number that would, reflect his IQ, because there's not a number low enough. But in terms of his ability as a rhetorician, he's really quite brilliant, and that's a scary fucking thing.
And he scapegoats just like Hitler did.
Yeah,
I think
charisma.
Hitler was better in completing sentences.
That's true.
I think Trump cannot speak fully a full sentence. I mean, he even cut himself during the conversation. So he's not really. I think it's like the fear.
So we live in a soundbite era now, whereas you know, you can get away with "Make America Great Again" 4-word sentences, can't you?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that the people who believe in these kinds of stuff that Trump is advocating for are already convinced. So he's just pushing them forward to them. He's not really convincing them. They are already convinced. He just became the speaker for the Senate majority.
Republican apologetics, I guess. Right? If you already believe it, you're going to be persuaded. It's just angry.
You want to get someone calling you names? That's a Trump supporter. Just bring up how many Americans that are white that kill Americans. It's actually more than any immigrant.
Yeah, but that's
names.
Playing with math. That's I'm sorry, but that's just playing with math. Obviously, I mean, in Iraq, most of the people who kill each other are brown people. Well, because the majority of Iraqis are brown people. So you cannot in America, the majority of Americans are white people. So obviously you're going to have a higher number of white-on-white crime or etc. than you would have on other races. But
or guys going into and killing a bunch of people in a church,
or an abortion clinic, or
yes,
yeah.
But that is.
But the fixation is on the one guy.
I just looked up the polls of Clinton versus Trump, and one of them, these are both 16 hours ago. One of them says that Clinton holds a 4-point lead over Trump, and the other one says that Trump leads Clinton with 1 point.
So basically in the margin of error. I don't understand this.
538. They take information from multiple sources. And then the popular vote, they have Hillary at only 48% and Donald at 45%. But with the Electoral College, they still have her at 65% of winning. So they take data from.
Isn't that
good,
scary
because although I don't like Clinton, I can't like Trump. The man is so incompetent.
Imagine what he'll do. You don't want to imagine. You can imagine, but you don't want to.
Long-term permanent damage that the United States would not recover from.
Not just the U.S.,
even less education.
Look at G.W. Bush. I mean, I would argue G.W. Bush was maybe well-meaning, but he was incompetent. And look at how much damage he caused. And now you're talking about somebody.
And then Hillary gets blamed for it.
Right. And now you're talking about somebody with Trump, who is neither competent nor well-meaning. So how much more damage do you think he can cause?
I can tell you the Prime Minister of Canada will never invite Donald Trump to speak if he becomes president. Won't happen.
And it's all over our media about how concerned we as Canadians are about the outcome of this election. So, it's not just the U.S. that it's going to affect. It's going to affect the world.
Of course it is.
Australians are worried. Everybody's worried. They're all thinking, well, how did you guys do this? Well, you got to start educating your populace, and you got to start getting rid of the religious control, it seems.
I've had the good fortune to be in a number of different countries this year. I mean, I was in India, I was in the United Arab Emirates, I was 15 countries in Europe and so forth. And everywhere that we went, they all told us the same thing. They said, wow, Trump, boy, what a disaster. You need to get rid of that guy. You need to elect Bernie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I believe that.
Yeah.
Somehow Hillary's name never came up.
Yeah.
But don't you think that's just a populism problem? I
really don't think so, Faisal, because it's not like anybody knew who the hell he was until, right?
No, Bernie,
he was kind of an unknown that. Huh? Well, yeah, but to my mind in particular, and I think a lot of other people, he's not a left winger. He's a centrist. In Canada, he would be very comfortable in the center.
Yeah, but he was a populist, though. I mean, the reason why Bernie is probably more well-known, because there is a difference between a populist and someone who's not a populist. I mean, Hillary doesn't have the charisma, I would argue, to be a populist, while Bernie, and also, let's be honest here. I mean, that Hillary has, I think lots of the Hillary hate that she has, I'm not saying that it's coming from people on this podcast, but Hillary has been in positions in which making a mistake is a big mistake, okay? While it's very different, so she can be bashed all day long based upon the decisions she has made, but Bernie has been in positions which are pretty much non-important, okay? Like he was a senator of a state most Americans cannot name. And while Hillary was the senator of New York, which is one of the center of finance in America, she has been a secretary of state. These are places in which if you have made a mistake, you're going to be held accountable for the rest of your life. And I can assure you now, Obama is more hated than in 2008, because when he came in 2008, he was just fresh off the boat. He was just a senator from Illinois. His history of voting is very small. Nobody can tell him, why did you vote this way? Why didn't you vote this another way? He doesn't have a lot of experience. So he came in with this charisma. He doesn't have so much baggage coming with him. People would immediately think of Obama as a good guy. But Hillary comes in with so much baggage of working in politics. And not only working in politics per se, but working in one of the most important positions a politician can make. And when she have made a small mistake, or she has made she had to compromise a little bit and stuff, she's being held account for it for the rest of her life, to the way that makes her more hated than someone. Maybe like right now, if I run for presidency in Iraq, because I'm younger, probably more hated, more liked than if I run in 25 years, because now I have more content than people can find the trouble with that they would find when I was younger. You know what I mean?
Well, that's just it. It's easy to dig up dirt on people, and if it's not there to be found, then there's not a hell of a lot of criticism to be deployed, right?
The more you hold the positions of power, the more powerful you become, the more you can dig up shit about people. I mean, now Obama presidency will be judged by so many different things, and some of these things going to be called negative. And
not only that, do you remember anything positive that Hillary's done? When I looked into everything good, like everybody remembers the mistakes, but nobody even looks at the good. Nobody even knows about the good that she did.
Yeah,
when
nobody wants to know.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I would be interested to hear something good that Hillary did.
Well, she tried to get universal health care in. She went to Estonia to figure out why their birth rates were so much better than America, and came back and tried to make changes and recommend changes based on Estonia's model. She got told, F off, go in the kitchen and bake cookies. You're the wife, not the president. So there's a lot of good that she's done for women, of course, and children and poverty and such, but nobody ever knew. I didn't know anything about her until I started actually looking. So everybody can remember the mistakes. And those get blown out of proportion, and she gets blamed for what Bush did. But
and Obama also gets blamed for what Bush did.
Exactly.
Totally, yeah.
But I think all the policies we care about that we discussed during this podcast, like abortion, under Clinton presidency would still be legal. Same-sex marriage would still be legal. Climate change, acceptance of climate change will be the case in Clinton presidency. I think it's going to be Obama 3.0. I mean, I don't see... Mm-hmm. I don't know why people are freaking out so much.
Yeah,
well, that's assuming she wins the election.
She's supposed to be working with Bernie more now. She's pretty cozy with Bernie now, and I hope it stays that way.
I mean, he could be the head of the Senate if he obviously, I think if she wins, maybe that's going to be more helpful, because if we're going to have a Democratic-controlled Senate, then and House, more laws can be passed than it's going to be obstruction by Republicans.
Exactly.
And I've seen a number of videos on Bernie back in the day when he would try to do something for veterans, for example, and you would see the other Republicans who were this year earlier running for president shooting Bernie down, to turning down everything that was ever offered for the veterans. So I have to wonder, why do veterans vote Republican?
Yeah.
That I don't know. And which other Republican candidate would have been better than Trump? Which one?
Paul Rand.
Rand Paul, you mean?
I don't even know
Rand Paul. Well, he's the libertarian one that was out of that fucking clown car. I thought he sounded...
No. He's not Republican. He's libertarian. Which
but he was running on the Republican platform, though.
Just John Kasich, but John Kasich has his own secret nuttiness. I mean, he comes across as a nice guy, but some of his policies... I
think Michael Bloomberg would have been a greater Republican.
If he was a Republican?
I mean, he was a Republican for a bit, and he switched to become an independent, but...
That's one thing you can thank Trump for, is if Trump fails this election, if Hillary gets elected, then Trump will have done such damage to the Republican Party.
I hope so, because they need to fix it.
Well, that brings up the question I've been wanting to ask for a bit. What does the Republican Party do for an encore? I mean, seriously.
Yeah. They did drive out a clown car.
Yeah,
they drove out a clown car. They spilled out a whole bunch of religious ideologues. I mean, a whole bunch of Christian end times dominionists, one libertarian, and fucking Trump.
In my opinion, the Republican establishment, the people that are in control of their money and war chests to do their political work, know that Trump was a really bad choice. They know this, but they've got an electorate that will vote for a candidate that is not electable in a general election against a Democrat, and they can't keep doing that because people donate to Republicans because they're wanting to buy influence, frankly. And if you're never going to get a president out of that, or a lot of this, I think there's been some Senate races too where they put up somebody who's unelectable because that's what the electorate wanted. They're going to bankrupt the Republican Party if the people that are voting for Trump, like people like Trump, the Republicans wanted to cut him off from the Victory Fund because because it was a waste of money. And 70% of registered Republicans still want them to spend that money on Trump. There's a disconnect, and it's maybe Fox News that is miseducating people so badly that they think that they can put up someone who is as out there as their political opinion is, and win, and they can't. I don't think the party can do it on its own. Their electorate has to be better educated and more politically savvy. And
that's why you need Democrats to improve the education system.
But don't you think it's funny that white evangelicals are voting for Trump, which is really interesting considering how much they care about faith and Judeo-Christian values, and the guy doesn't really have any.
Yes.
But he'll
make them up for him.
I've seen mental cartwheels from evangelicals why they're still going to go for Trump. I'm half white and raised Southern Baptist on that side, and they would have known Trump's bullshit. I mean, he wouldn't have been able to bullshit them. I mean, you don't even have to follow election that closely to know that he's an adulterer, a proud adulterer, fornicator, all the things that they don't approve of. And there's few of them, like even Paul Ryan, I think, admitted that he couldn't look his daughter in the face because of and vote for Trump because of what he did to the sexual assault things. And so there's still people that are still justifying their vote. The latest one I've seen is that Trump is going to get impeached anyways, and his running mate Pence is going to be president. So that's their latest rationalization, their latest mental cartwheel.
And Pence is so much worse than Trump is.
Not to the evangelicals.
Actually, he's more dangerous.
Well, yes. I mean, Pence is just as bad as Cruz.
Yeah, I was going to mention Cruz.
What does Trump think about evolution?
He doesn't think.
Yeah.
He thinks women should get aborted. Well, he told Marla to get abortion, but now he says the women should get punished for them. I think he just says what people want to hear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he backtracks because he said that he'd never met Putin. He'd never been to Russia. The closest he'd ever been to Russia was selling a house for $40 million to a Russian that wasn't worth $40 million. And then in another interview, he said that he met Putin, had a relationship with Putin, and that they met in Moscow on a TV show.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you have these two contradictions and not call him a liar?
Yeah, I mean the issue is that many of his supporters don't even care, and that's kind of is that like he was right when he said if I'm gonna shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, my supporters will still love me. That's a hell of a dogmatic support that he has.
The one thing we need to look at though is identity. Like Christianity is a religion, but it's also an identity. It's the culture that people are raised in. And white identity is very integral too. So it may not even be what he's saying. It's just they're voting with who they see themselves as. They're siding with that side.
And they're Republican no matter what.
Yeah, they vote Republican no matter what. Like Aron's uncle, we visited him recently. I'm not going to vote for a damn Democrat.
And he's a veteran.
It's part of his identity to be Republican.
And he won't understand that the Republicans have been the ones always, every time, who have fucked over veterans.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he get that?
And everybody else.
Yeah. I don't understand how these people don't
say think.
Know these things.
Okay.
It's part of their identity. It's the part of the society that they hang out with. And everybody agrees that Democrats support welfare queens when the reality is that there are more whites on welfare than the people Reagan used to vilify as black welfare queens. But reality has nothing to do with it. It's their identity to believe that that way.
Now let me talk about
That's very
reality,
true
since
here,
my wife
too.
brought it up. Whenever I go talk to my mother, I mentioned her before. As soon as I walk into her space, up becomes down, left becomes right, black becomes white, increases become decreases. We have suddenly a lower economy and higher unemployment under Obama than we had under Bush. And suddenly Obama is to blame for the wars that Bush caused.
Jeez.
And for the Patriot Act that Bush created. This also is Obama's fault. And I've actually seen where Obama was blamed for Hurricane Katrina.
Thanks, Obama.
Wouldn't it make sense that someone who has cultural bias is thinking with under cultural biases like religion or race or political affiliation, that they have poor critical thinking skills because they've been raised to think with a bias?
So when you look at the comparison between Clinton, when you look at the comparison between Clinton and Trump, my mother, like so many Trump supporters, is convinced that Clinton is the one that has had all of these convictions. You can't even show her the list of times that Trump has gone into trial or is still facing imminent trials. The only reason he's not in trial for child rape next week is because his accuser backed out on the excuse that she's receiving death threats.
Yeah. But what happened to you, Aaron, then? Because you obviously didn't, like, my mom was batting it crazy, every conspiracy theory, made up her own, everything else, and there's no way I could follow her thinking. So I think that made me kind of a natural-born skeptic, because I had to go around questioning everything she said.
My mother raised me to believe that the road warrior was my future.
Cool.
That's not teach you critical thinking? Like, this can't be true? Like, how did that work? How did you come out to be so not?
From the time I was a small child, she kept telling me again and again and again that any minute now, all of the world governments are going to collapse, and we're going to have to run to the hills. She has giant plastic totes that she's put in sleeping bags and Coleman lanterns and bags of rice and things like that, so that we can, hide somewhere, when the end time comes. And she's got these emergency supplies ready to throw in the car at a moment's notice to head for the hills. And she doesn't even know where the hills are.
Like Mormons are required to keep 2 years supply of supplies.
For the end time?
Yes.
So why are they voting Trump for the end times? That's what's going to get you the end times, is the Trump.
Well, interestingly, the Mormons are not voting for Trump. They're voting for their own Mormon candidate. And so in one state out of the 50, there will be a third-party candidate that actually beats Trump.
In Utah.
Yeah, Utah always votes Republican, but this time around they're voting for some other guy. I can't remember his name. McMullen, yeah, the Mormon candidate. And what's funny about that is that my mother, some 10 years ago, was telling me about how the Mormon prophet who speaks directly to God, had made this announcement that there would never be a Mormon president. That it was just destiny, that it would never happen. And so when it turned out that she was voting for Romney, I'm like, why are you voting for a Mormon when your prophet said there would never be a Mormon president? Why not just give up and vote for Obama?
Critical thinking.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, she can't remember that that's what the prophet said before.
Oh.
Just like she couldn't remember what the prophet said before when they said that black skin was the mark of the devil put upon Cain.
Yes.
And that's where black people came from. And this is somebody who believes also in the global flood, which kind of would ridicule that story, because where was Cain's family when the flood came?
Yeah, that you cannot argue with that. You cannot argue against that. Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs.
Well, at least there's a few of us that prove that we don't turn out like our parents, at least.
Well, come Wednesday morning, is it going to be calm, or is there going to be some violence?
Hard to predict, because there was like a terrorist advisory in Texas, and I think New York's one of them, one other state. At first I was hearing it was Al-Qaeda, but...
it is Al-Qaeda, yeah.
And also there might be some of our own right-wing terrorists, so maybe trying to intimidate people from voting, I guess.
Well, we have our coup d'etats here, and they don't amount to anything, so I'm going to hope it's going to go like that.
Was there not a judge who placed a restraining order against some people that were going to supposedly defend voters' rights or something like that by standing there armed, that were neo-Nazis or white supremacists of some sort?
There's a group called the Oath Keepers here that has a tendency to stalk people with automatic weapons, just saying they're protecting the neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah, and they will never be referred to as terrorists, even though they use threats of violence in order to change policy. They'll never be called terrorists because their skin is white.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't doubt that Al-Qaeda might plan something. It's a very splashy day to get in the news.
Yeah, I don't understand people being manipulated by fear the way that they are. I don't understand why our news media works the way that it does. And this gives terrorists power.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yep.
So that swings it back around to what we were talking about before, because I think a group like Al-Qaeda or ISIS doesn't care if Donald Trump is president, because then that helps their propaganda.
That's why they want it.
So that they care about someone like Maajid Nawaz, who actually is deconverting people from extreme Islam because they have less support.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Trump winning would be really reflect a very bad image about America. I mean, and that is. I mean, the United States needs so much work on working with allies. I mean, terrorism is a global issue, and we need to work with our allies in Europe and around Asia and all over to defeat it. And I don't think Trump is well respected, or even respected at all by any of the leaders in NATO who he tries to pull off from Canada, which is neighbors, and his thing with Mexico, and his talk with Japan about the fact that they need to pay more. And we need all of these countries we don't need to, America does not need to be isolated in its war against terrorism. And I think that, because that's going to make things much more difficult. I mean, it is an international issue, and we need an international workforce. Yes, I mean but I just want to make a comment which I think is very important. The left and Democrats, most importantly, need to get their heads straight on the issue of terrorism, which I think also empowers the Trumps of the world and empowers the far right of the world. So if we really want to, I mean, you do know for a fact that, for example, Maajid Nawaz would never get hired in a Democratic presidency. I mean, that's a fact. Like whether it's under Obama or it's under Hillary Clinton, people like Maajid Nawaz or Aayan Hirsi or all the people that we hold dear to be either secular Muslim or secular ex-Muslims are never going to be hired in a Democratic presidency.
Well, you're saying that as if there's some chance that they'd be hired under a Republican presidency.
Well, that is the sad part, is that why do we need? I mean, I'm not going to look for solutions from the Republicans. I mean, I would look for solutions with the people that I agree the most with, right? I mean, I'm not going to look for Donald Trump to provide me with solutions, but I would look for people that I'm closer to. And if you look at the history of the people that the United States government have hired in countering extremism and so on, are people that you never want to work with. Like, I mean, the people like President Obama hired, which I think fired eventually, so that was a good move from him, is an adamant person who thinks that the Muslim Brotherhood is a force for good in Egypt and a force for good around the Muslim world. The people that President Obama hired are much worse than Maajid Nawaz. And not only much worse than Maajid Nawaz, but rather hate Maajid Nawaz strongly and think he's on the wrong side of history on this subject. And people who don't think that secularism is part of the solution or liberalism is part of the solution. And that is something that, I mean, the United Kingdom has kind of woken up very recently because of the terrorism they have in their country, right? They have a significant Muslim population in the United Kingdom, and many of them have joined ISIS. I mean, we're talking about the thousands of British Muslims who don't feel, who some of them left amazing jobs with £200,000 of salaries and left the UK and joined ISIS. And now the United Kingdom, like until recently, then they started listening to people like Maajid Nawaz, and that's after like shit hits the fan, excuse my terminology. But and I hope that it's not going to take such measure. I hope we're not going to wake up in a day and we see thousands of Muslim Americans join ISIS and then, or commit terrorist attacks, and then the Democrats will be like, oh, maybe Maajid Nawaz and Hirsi Ali, maybe they have a point. I hope we're not going to reach to that level. So the faster Democrats going to wake up on this subject, the better they're going to leave the Republicans with no talking points to talk about. I mean, the thing about like Trump that he used against his debate with Hillary about why she refuses to just use the term Islamic extremism. And CNN has asked the same question for Obama, and his answer was complete deflection from the question. I mean, his answer was, if we're gonna call ISIS Islamic group, we actually gotta make more Muslims join ISIS.
No.
I mean, you just said that it's not a Muslim group. Why do you think Muslims join ISIS if we call it Islamic group? So I mean, he was very contradictory in his answer. And also like using the same apologist words of like, oh, ISIS hijacked a great religion and this is not a true Islam. And he became a theologian out of nowhere. Like he started becoming an expert of what true Islam is and what not a true Islam is. And this and it's really sad. I mean, if you look at the Arab world and the media, people there are much more honest about what the issue is than they are in the West. At least they are in the left of the West. I mean, if you look at the Iraqi media, which I watch very frequently, I mean, people explicitly calling people like ISIS to be like an Islamist group. They're not fearful about not to sound Islamophobic or not to sound racist. Like they just say it by it is. They say this is like Wahhabi group, Salafist group. They use this terminology. And then you come to the West and you watch President Obama or Hillary Clinton or Bernie Saunders or whatever on the left asking about this question. And they avoid at any cost using the term Islamist or Islamic or linking terrorism to religion in any sort. And that's caveats, and that hole that's being created empowers the right wing. That makes them weaker. And
I got to remind you, when I was talking to my mother about Obama, she said that, that Obama was a Muslim. And I said, no, he's not. And she said, yes, he is. And I've got a video to prove it. Oh. And so I had her play the video. And she played this like 17-minute video. And she goes, there, see? And I said, yeah, you showed me a video that shows that he is not a Muslim. And she was insistent that the video should show that he was a Muslim. Why? Because at some point he said the Holy Quran instead of just the Quran. Like, serious? Well, yeah. I say the Holy Bible in some of my writings, and I'm an atheist. Just if I call it holy, does that mean that I'm Christian just because I said that? That this doesn't mean that he's Muslim. This doesn't imply this in any way. At no point in this video did he ever say anything that could be interpreted as an implication that he was Muslim. And she said something, or somewhere else in the video, that he said something friendly to Islamic people, or that Islam is a religion of peace. Okay, fine. So he says that what the Muslims want to say, that they want to be presented as a religion of peace. He's saying, okay, they want to be that. But that doesn't mean he's Muslim. At no point does it. But he will not accept it.
Well, I mean, if he was a Muslim, he's the best Muslim ever. I mean, he's like, he drinks alcohol, he smokes, he legalized same-sex marriage, he He's a pro-choice. I mean, if he's a Muslim, I would definitely put him as one of the best examples. I mean, we need more Obama.
We just need more footage of him eating bacon.
I think
actually we do.
whenever people say that ISIS and Al Qaeda or terrorist groups aren't Islamic, I think maybe people are talking about two different things. Yes, they are. You can look at and justify Wahhabism within the Quran, but on the other hand, I think what people are trying to say is most Muslims are peaceful, and I think I was talking to you, Faisal, for people to say that prejudice could cause people to be terrorists. That's kind of racist in a way, because I mean, there's people that you can do all kinds of things to them, and that's not going to make them into a terrorist.
Exactly.
There's something additional. There's like usually they've been brutalized as into a brutal form of Islam, or there's some criminal element to it, or they're abusive people.
And Jim Jeffries, the comedian, did a wonderful send-up of Trump where he was talking about what the things that Trump said about creating this like registry for Muslims and so forth, where he's creating a situation where you would have radicalized Muslims that would never have been radicalized before.
Yeah, but just think about that for a bit. I mean, I do not approve. Obviously, I hope it's obvious by now. I do not approve of anything Trump says. I mean, just to be clear. But at the same time, just think about that for a second. So Trump said lots of things about Mexicans and the rapists, illegal Mexicans, and so on. He said the rapists, they bring crime, whatever. Are we worried right now if someone says such inflammatory rhetoric that Mexicans will join by the thousands and become drug cartels? Are we really worried about that? Are we worried, like, if we insult Catholic Mexicans, they're going to join a group that is as brutal as ISIS and start murdering us by the thousands? No, we're not. That's a fact. So the fact that even in its most extreme prejudice, which what Trump was advocating for by putting registry for Muslims or whatever, that's his own policy. Let's assume that is his own policy, that he wants to register Muslim or put an ID that Muslims, whatever, that they would join ISIS as a result of that. I think that says more about these Muslims than it says about Trump. I mean, if somebody says, if crazy right-winger says, oh, all Muslims are terrorists, and the Muslim response to that statement is that, oh, he called me a terrorist, I am triggered right now, and I'm going to join ISIS as a result of that. What it says about this specific person? It says more about him than it says about the crazy right-winger.
Now, since you brought that up, one of the things I'm curious about with the issue is Trump is that I know people who are celebrated for their intelligence and who are supporting Trump.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. I mean, just like you have somebody like the head of the Human Genome, what's his name? Francis Collins, yeah, who is the head of the Human Genome and believe in a talking snake. I mean, unfortunately, some people can hold.
He doesn't actually believe in a talking snake.
Yeah, I think he's more metaphorical.
Yeah, he does not accept creationism. He says. He wrote that there was a point where the human population was as low as 10,000, but that it was never a point when it could have been Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Well, you have Ben Carson. I mean, that you have Ben Carson, who I think he was the head of a neurosurgery in Johns Hopkins University, and he believes that the pyramids used to store a grain of. So yes, you can have people.
I think Ben Carson became a brain surgeon by practicing on himself.
He sure looks like it.
I want to interject here, Faisal, and ask you, because I think you've addressed the topic of Muslims who become radicalized, but what about the people who convert to Islam and become radicalized? Because so here in Calgary, we've turned out some terrorists essentially, right? And some of those people have
joined.
Yes. I mean, so obviously it's got nothing to do with race.
That's because Islam equals racial equality.
And peace.
No, but there are people that
take up a gun no matter who you are.
People that grew up in secular homes or moderate Christian homes who have gone overseas to fight for ISIS and stuff like that, right? Like, what the hell is that?
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, there was an article published by ISIS magazine about a woman in Finland. So she grew up in Finland, and she grew up in a very moderate Christian home, and so on. I mean, Finland, has the best education in the world, best lifestyle, one of the most successful social democracies the world has ever known. When it comes to white converts, many of them are looking for quote unquote authentic religions or pure religions, and they think that Christianity has been diluted as a result of Reformation and Enlightenment and so on, and they're looking for something quote unquote more authentic. And not only, there's something additional to white converts, is that even when they convert to Islam, there is a part of them that they have to be more conservative than the average Muslims, because they have to prove to the world that they are Muslims. Because everybody can look at them as white people, and they're like, oh, why are you a Muslim? And then he will tell you, well, I'm a Muslim, and I'm also a conservative Muslim, just so they can show to other people that they are like more Muslim than the average Muslim, and so on. And many of them, and as a result of getting more and more fundamentalist and conservative, they're going to be drawn to the rhetoric of ISIS.
What makes a person that way?
Well, I think there's a part of some people looking for attention. There are people who feel that their life is completely meaningless, and they think that them being part of a group that is about fighting good and evil, fighting for good and defeating evil, and would be very appealing to them. I mean, there's a very I think it can be explained by psychology to some extent, that maybe if we have lived 20 years ago, they probably have joined communism. I mean, they'll probably have joined fascism. Is that it has this, like, they get drawn to these elements of good versus evil. And the message of ISIS, to some extent, is appealing to groups like this. I mean, they're talking about, if you join us, you're going to bring the end of days. You're going to be fighting for one of the most pure forms of Islam the world has ever known. And you're going to be with your brothers, and you're going to be in one community, and it has like lots of specific of the message that I think could be very appealing for people like that. The people who are looking for authenticity, the people who are looking for exotic Eastern culture, fetishized Middle Eastern culture. And that's very appealing to them. I mean, I happen to know actually one person who converted to Islam, and this person like has the psychology of a person who's just looking for attention. Like literally, like she is just attention. You complete the next words, but she would be looking for attention no matter where that attention come from, and she would like just intentionally say crazy things to get attention. She would like do, and I think her converting to Islam, I mean, drew more attention to her that she would never get. I mean, she's from like a suburb, very lousy lifestyle. Like nothing is important about her. I'm sorry, but like she lived a life which is completely normal, and nothing is really interesting about her life. And she wanted to be this interesting person. Like she wanted to be this person that's like get attention and featured in the media and so on. And she started like wearing the hijab. After like a day of bombing, after like the Orlando attack or something, she started wearing the hijab and get featured in many blogs and newspapers and so on. She got an attention that she would never get just being a white girl in a suburb of America. Like she would never get. Now she is getting attention from all over just because she converted to Islam, and just because and she's wearing the hijab after a day of like a bombing, like the ISIS attack in Orlando and so on. And that gave her, like, she's now happy. She's now very happy about it. Like, she's getting attention that she would never get.
But she's not hopping a plane. She's not hopping a plane to, fraternize with the terrorists, shall we say, to put it nicely, even though it's not a family-oriented podcast and I could swear.
I got to wonder how much personality disorder figures into what we're talking about. But I've seen it argued both ways.
Yeah, but we're talking en masse here.
I'm there's a lot of people with personality disorders if you consider how many human beings there are. So 100 converts, that would be maybe a drop in the bucket. for a population of 1 million people. But
I have
anyway,
similar questions.
wait, Aron. I've seen it explained both ways. I've seen it explained like ISIS is ideological purity. Like if the Quran says to that a homosexual should be pushed off a building, that's what we're gonna do. Like they're being very literal. And like if Christianity were to do the same thing and execute homosexuals and just be very literal, then people would think it was maybe more pure. And I've seen that argument. But then I've seen another argument that a lot of people are just in it for adventure. They're lured by thinking that they're going to be having this really interesting life, and they don't really know the reality of what it's like to live in a war zone. And they get there and they get corrected, like the two. I don't remember where they were from, but there were two that were cover girls.
Those two girls, yeah.
I think Austria.
They're dead.
Yeah,
they're dead now.
They're dead, and they were lured by propaganda that they were going to have this really cool life, and not boring but an interesting life. So I've seen it both ways, and I've seen some people say that that a lot of the people who are actually in ISIS don't actually have a extensive knowledge of the Quran. So which one is it, Faisal?
I think it could be everything that you just talked about. I mean, people join a terrorist group for many different reasons. I mean, there is no one reason why somebody would join a terrorist group, and especially like a group as sophisticated and global as ISIS is. I mean, there are many people who joined ISIS are just literally like former Baathists who left out without job after the U.S. invasion of Iraq and after the discrimination of them by the Shia government and seeing Iranian expansion, and they joined ISIS because they saw it as the most powerful group that exists. So there is a feeling of Sunni persecution or perceived Sunni persecution in the Middle East that makes people join ISIS because it's this pure Sunni group that would fight against the Shias and reduce Iran expansion in the Middle East. And there are people who, as you just mentioned, that joined for adventurous. I mean, the adventurous types and stuff are mostly people who are just white converts who don't know shit about anything, and just like see there's something cool and exotic and because they publish their stuff like on Twitter and stuff that I look over. So there is this element, but I think that this is like a very small percentage. I mean, the significant amount of of ISIS recruitment comes from Sunnis who live in the Middle East who feel that the Shias are taking over, and that they see that the Shias are having more and more power, and there is a need to fight against them and push their expansion. So there are the people who join, there are people who are supporters, obviously. So that's a bit of a difference. But and then so that's like a significant amount of ISIS like membership, which I don't know the exact number of it. And then there is the whites, or not necessarily white. I mean, ISIS is as diverse as New York City. I mean, they have Asians and I mean, it's the true like liberal dream, right? Just kidding. Like you're gonna like they have people from all over the world. They have women of color. They have non-women of color. They have the only people they don't
women
have
of non-color.
The only people they don't have is the LGBT community. I mean, the only non-represented group in ISIS is the LGBT. The rest is all represented. So I mean, it's a very diverse group of. I mean, they have also Boko Haram. I mean, Boko Haram is another group of ISIS, which religious to ISIS, which is also filled with, I mean, African people, Nigerians and others. So it's a very. I mean, most of it is I would argue it's very ideological and being inclined, and generally like the power structure generally when it comes to civil wars and stuff, the people join the militias try to join the most powerful militia, and ISIS, considering it became the most powerful militia, it also was able to draw the most recruits. And now the second one is Jabhat al-Nusra, which is Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria, which is the second one after ISIS that tried to have the largest amount of recruits. So they're competing over which how many recruits they have.
I had a similar question on what makes people become Republican, and I think it might be child abuse in their early years. Maybe what makes people become libertarian, and I think that may be a lack of positive nutrients when they're developing.
I wouldn't take it this far, but but it's coming from you. I cannot argue.
I'm going to have to bail on this because I've got jury duty that I have to meet up for in the morning.
Holy.
Better that end than the other end.
Before we all leave, can I get everybody to please reintroduce themselves and promote whatever they're working on?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, don't all speak at once. Faisal, you start.
Oh, thank you. Why are you being racist because you allow the brown guy to speak first?
Gross and racist.
Yeah, so I'm continuing. I mean, the last podcast I was talking about. So I'm working on trying to help out secular and liberal voices around the Muslim world and trying to push it as a counter narrative to extremism. I've done that through movements.org, and I'm trying to work on a new project that is only focused on extremism that I'm going to send you the website about later. And I'm giving talks and doing the usual stuff. And and people can follow me on my Facebook on Faisal S. Al Mutar, and on Twitter, Faisal Mutar, and they can see more of my stuff.
Oh. Aron?
I am Aron Ra, president of Atheist Alliance of America, a director of the Phylogeny Explorer Project, author of Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism,
and that just
which
came out.
was just released a week ago. And what I'm working on now is I would like to. I have goals for my presidency of trying to unify the atheist movement as much as can be against a common enemy with common goals.
Good luck.
And lastly, Lilandra.
My name is Lilandra. I'm Aron's wife, and I also write the Living Science video series that's on his channel to help educate people, middle schoolers and high schoolers, using the next generation science standards. That way they're not as gullible to pseudoscience. I also blog at Reason Advocates on Pathos, and I advocate reason. And in that capacity, I would encourage everybody who's listening, who's American and can vote, to get out and fucking vote. Holy crap, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Oh, awesome. Thank you all for being on, and it's been an excellent podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
God bless.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Legion of Reason, coming to you from Calgary, Canada. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please consider reviewing us on iTunes. Music was provided by Dean Morrison and Graham Hill and used with permission.